Are you ready to explore soul-centered sustainable living in today's reality? I'm Leslie Rangel, an Emmy-nominated Latina TV journalist turned emotional health and spiritual movement coach. Join me on the News Yogi, where we'll have conversations celebrating authenticity in a world that demands perfect curation. So come as you are, familia, not who you're expected to be. New episodes every Monday on your favorite platform. Hey y'all, welcome to the News Yogi Podcast. Y'all, how are you doing? Not like, okay, I'm good, just keep on going, but how are y'all really doing? Y'all know that this podcast focuses exactly on that. Think about it as journalism for the nervous system. That's what I've really been marinating on with this podcast. And, you know, it's been hard for me because I have been out here trying to show up consistently, work out. I posted a reel on this. Show up consistently, work out, drink my water, mind my own business, be in the gym, go to dance class, show up for my friends, be a wife, be a dog mom, be creative, excel in my 9 to 5 as a journalist. And it all feels shattering, you know, like if someone takes a hammer and like just cracks a window, but it doesn't break and it's just all shattered. That's kind of the energy and mood that I've really been feeling. And it's been hard. It feels like the world around us is continuously burning with like every new headline that we get. It reminds me a lot of that meme where, I don't know if it's a beaver or what, but it's that little cartoon character that's sitting at the dining room table and everything around him is on fire. He's like, I'm fine. It's fine. It's fine. You know, friends are in my DMs sharing about how they've lost their jobs or they're getting ready to quit their job because it's just not supportive of their nervous system anymore. I have other friends who are really concerned about the immigration raids that are happening. There's a lot of fear. There's fear I have from friends that are talking about politically, where is our country going? Like, just again, a lot of questions. And I just have some friends who we all have just regular, hey, my back hurts and I don't know what to do about this. And so again, it just all feels really, really heavy. And so within that, I want to talk a little bit more about those of us that are in spaces where we have to speak up, whether it's someone like me who's a journalist and I don't have the privilege to just ignore what's happening around us. I have to face it. I have to consume it because I have to write about it to keep people informed. But then on the flip side, there's a lot of folks out there who are on the front lines of activism, and activism looks a completely different way in 2025 than what people might traditionally think of activism. I know for me, when I think of activism, immediately I think of the 1960s, like what things were like then, how people were showing up to protest, how people really were pushing for change. And it just all feels really similar, but in a lot of ways different. And this week's theme is really about speaking up in the face of everything that's happening, but also taking a look at the cost of it. At what cost are people showing up and speaking out? And what does that mean for folks individually? So I'm actually really excited for this week's guest. Her name is Wendy Amara. She is actually one of my former coaches, although she'll tell you she's still my coach, because that's one thing about us coaches that we always say, if we were your coach once, it means we were your coach forever. But I was really interested in talking to Wendy because I remember when I first started working with her, she wasn't as vocal as you might see her being today. You know, of course, she's Latina, her family's from Guatemala. And so you could just look at her and hear her speak about certain things, and you knew that she had a certain way of moving in the world. But she was never really vocal about it, never really upfront, never really talking about immigration and the impact of it as we're seeing it today. And so I was really curious to talk to her. She's a life coach, she's a content creator, she's an activist now, and collecting stories of immigrants on the ground in Los Angeles, and really trying to bring to light some of these issues that folks in the Latino community are facing. So without further ado, let's hop into this week's interview with my dear friend and coach, Wendy Amara. Wendy, I'm so excited to welcome you to the podcast, the News Yogi Podcast.
Yes, congratulations. I'm so excited to be here and just excited for you and this podcast. I know it's going to help so many people.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a long time coming. I was sharing in the introduction that you and I worked together as a coach. You were my coach, and I came to you with a lot of goals and a lot of dreams, and this is just one of them that's come to fruition.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're doing this. Yes, I remember talking about this podcast as an idea you had a couple of years ago, and now here it is. It's getting done.
Here it is. In the flesh, we're getting it done. You know, one of the ways that I like to start off the podcast is asking people, who are you in this moment? Because so many times we say like, hey, how you doing? People will answer great and then move on. But really on the inside, there's a lot more to that. So I'd like to ask you, Wendy, who are you in this moment? ¿Quién eres?
You know, the way I want to answer that in this very moment is that I'm a mom, which is not the way I normally answer that question, right? I usually say I'm a coach, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a business owner, or I'm a Latina millionaire, or I'm an activist. And the activist part of me definitely has been at the forefront of me lately. But since we're doing this on the weekend, I've been a mom, which is what I mostly do on the weekend. I really focus on my kids. I have 3 kids. I have a teenager now, Leslie. So that alone requires a lot of self-discovery and patience. And then the twins are now 10. So I'm a mom to 3 kids. I have twins, Luca and Leia, who are 10 years old, and a 14-year-old. Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. And it's one of the titles that doesn't always come to the forefront. But at my core, I am a wife, I am a mother of 3, and I'm an entrepreneur, business owner, and activist. That's who I am.
I love that. And that's really the theme of what this interview really is. When I really got to sit and think about, you know, the courage to speak up, but also at what cost and what that means. So before we dive into all of that, I know a little bit about your background story and where your ancestors, your roots come from. But I'm curious if you could share with our listeners a little bit about your immigrant background, how you became a coach, and what's been your healing path, because I know there was one there as well.
Yes. Wow. Okay. How I came to coaching. Yes. So I'm the proud daughter of parents from Guatemala. Both my parents immigrated in the 1970s from Guatemala to the United States. And I was born here and very much taught, like all first gen daughters, I think, get taught that we are the saving grace for our family and we're supposed to go to school and get good grades and get, you know, graduate degrees and keep continuing to educate ourselves, and that education is the way out of the uncertainty that is the immigrant life in the United States. So I did all of those things. I went and ended up getting a master's degree from UCLA in urban planning. I started working in nonprofit management. I got my dream job, or what I thought was my dream job, and I was miserable. I was still, you know, feeling like there was something else that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make an impact in the Latina community specifically. I didn't know how I wanted to do that, and I didn't feel like there were many options. So I started to search for my own, for the purposes of healing myself and the purposes of trying to figure my own life out. That's how I ended up finding coaching, is I was really searching for something to support me with the anxiety I was feeling. I battled depression at times because I really had believed that, okay, as soon as I checked everything off the list, that life was going to feel better. And then I checked a bunch of, right? Yeah. And I did all that. I checked a bunch of stuff off the list and I didn't feel better. So I was like, what the hell, man? Wait, Did my parents teach me, give me a bag of goods that wasn't true? And the truth is, what I realize now is that this idea of the American dream is different for us as first gen, and that we actually have more options than even what our parents thought we had. Our parents see certain exits off the freeway as the way to freedom, like education. And that is one of the exits. But there are other exits, like entrepreneurship. There's other exits off the freeway that will also bring you freedom, joy, and love. So I found coaching, which is a big part of my healing, through searching for what was going to work for me in helping me to develop a new relationship with myself, a new perspective on life. And transformational coaching is what worked for me. I think in part because I have an ADHD brain. Yeah. Coaching is very action oriented. It's not just about processing through feelings, although we do talk a lot about feelings, but there's also accountability involved and actual tools that you need to use. You need to go out in the world and do things. And that worked well for me and my brain. And that's how I ended up finding coaching, falling in love with coaching, and wanting to coach the whole wide world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of how we connected. Is I was entering my healing journey from many things, a lot of the things that I can relate to you on the first gen career path and being the eldest daughter and doing it all. And then you get there and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't it. And I remember when I connected with you, I was so inspired because in the healing spaces that I had been in before, there weren't many women that looked like me or had similar stories or even knew where Guatemala was. And so when you shared that, I was like, wow, I need to work with this woman. And one thing I remember too, which kind of leads me into your new activist role, is I remember when I would talk to you and when we would be in coaching spaces, it's not that you didn't talk about immigration or the current landscape. It was more like we knew who you were, and even you just showing up in these spaces kind of said all that needed to be said. But I'm curious on why maybe you were quiet on topics before as it related to specifically social media. This political landscape that we're in is not new. And so I'm just curious on what was it like before, and now you're like front and center, literally on the front lines. What was that change like for you?
Yeah, well, okay. The way I was trained as a coach back in the day, and I always explain to people that I've been coaching now for 20 years, right? So 20 years, 2005. So it's been a long time. And back in the day, before everybody thought they were a coach and before there was TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, I was trained from a group of professional coaches. And the mindset really was that we are like, physicians or psychologists, where we really take what we're doing, the work that we're doing, very seriously. And one of the core principles that I learned back then, which I have since danced with a little and created a new principle around, but back then was this principle of neutrality around the beliefs that a client has, that the client can show up with whatever they believe, and that our job as the coach is to hold space for them to discover, does that belief serve you? Does that belief not serve you? And if it doesn't, then what are the new beliefs that will serve you? So to question their own belief patterns and find the ones that are going to best serve them now. But we're just the holder of the space, and then we ask the powerful questions. We're the person asking the questions versus inputting our own perspective, right? And similar to what physicians do or psychologists do, they step outside of their own personal beliefs and come in fully neutral, right? From a neutral place. So for many years, I practiced this level of neutrality, and it just became kind of second nature to me, where I just didn't talk politics. But you're absolutely right that I started purposely coaching Latinas in 2019 because I felt a calling from my ancestors. I felt like my ancestors were talking to me and telling me, hey, listen, you need to be working with brown women specifically. So I was already a successful coach. I had already built a practice, mostly working with white men, not on purpose, but it happened to be who I was like coaching as a ADHD coach, as an executive coach, right? And I was neutral. So I was just like, I'll coach anyone. as long as they're looking for these skill sets. When I started to feel my ancestors were talking to me, and as I did more healing work and more grounding work, I got more connected to that. Then I shifted my perspective into, okay, I'm specifically going to work with Latinas or brown women or women of color, which is the majority of what I work with now. In that shift, then I decided to start to allow myself to fully experience all of me, be fully self-expressed, which includes my politics. And at the beginning, I think, Leslie, when you were in my space, I wasn't overt about my politics. I wasn't overt about what I believe. It was more covert, but it was obvious that the work we were doing was transformational work that was enabling women of color to stand in their power more. And a certain type of women of color, because you just look at the type of women that I had in the mastermind, the type of women that I was attracting into Inspired Action, into the Get It Done Mastermind, were women who were from a certain, liberatory mindset. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I love that you said that because, the overt versus covert. And I think that's what a lot of people are dancing with right now. I know at the time for me, that was really serving because even for me, I was in a traditional legacy type of newsroom where the same thing, you are neutral when you show up to places, you can't be seen certain areas, you can't post about certain things. And I too now am dancing around in that shift of how do I show up in a way that we are championing basic human rights for folks, but also not, trying to, in my role as a journalist, I'm not partisan. I don't share what my politics are, but, I think we're in a world and space right now where I think it's okay to say something is racist when it's inherently racist, or something is a violation of human rights when it is. And so I know for me, that's been more freeing, even in the newsroom that I'm working with. And now through the News Yogi podcast, what has it been like for you stepping into your voice and really being able to speak more on immigration and what's happening in Los Angeles right now, and really in California? We're seeing a lot of the headlines and it's really disturbing.
Yeah, we're under attack in California. And it's very obvious that Los Angeles specifically is being targeted, almost like a revenge kind of target. Like, I feel like an ex-boyfriend that we broke up with that is super pissed off and is doing everything they possibly can to get revenge. That's the feeling. It's really a sad truth. LA feels different than it did in January. When January we had the fires, so that was horrible too. It's been a hard 6 months in LA. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. It's been a really hard 6 months. But I've come to terms with, we're not living in the same United States that we were living in even 10, 12 years ago. You can see how laws are changing. Things that we used to be able to count on, institutions that we used to be able to count on are changing. People are getting fired from their jobs simply because of stating something against the president. It's becoming a country where you can't openly speak your mind. And what, kind of incited in me the ability to want to speak out is the fact that, one, I don't owe anybody anything. What I mean by that is I am a solo entrepreneur. I work for myself. I don't have all these contracts with government agencies or with, organizations that do work with minorities or work with or support Latina, inclusion or diversity and inclusion work there. I don't do any work around necessarily. I don't get contracted through those particular contracts. So I'm one of those few people, I found out, that does actually have the freedom to be able to speak my mind, that can actually speak my mind. It actually came from feeling angry. The reason I've gotten so vocal or become so vocal is because I was really angry at the fact that there weren't more people being vocal. And so I started to ask them, hey, you've seen what's happened since this administration came into power, since they were elected in November, and then since they came into power in January. Why aren't you saying anything? I asked my fellow Latina coaches. I asked leaders in the community. Some people were like, I'm tired. I'm just exhausted. I don't have the energy or I don't have enough of a regulated nervous system to be able to get involved. Okay.
That's real.
But right. And other people were like, listen, I coach for this company, and this company has had me sign an NDA, or I teach part-time at this university and this university has restricted this and that here and there. So these restrictions that they're not able to really speak up. And from that, I said, well, screw it. I don't owe anybody anything. I can actually speak up. I work for myself. And yes, I do have some contracts, I should say, that are with some tech companies, and I have clients that work for some companies, but not enough that they would restrict what I have to say. And then I saw a couple of videos that really inspired me, Leslie, and that's why I was like, oh, he's speaking up, this person's speaking up. Somebody asked me to join Roots and Wings. Then I was like, that's it. I can't hold back anymore all of this anger that I'm feeling in my body and the injustice that I'm witnessing. And if I'm one of the few people that can raise my hand, and maybe even my business will become more successful because of it, not less, then let's go. That's been my intuition, and that's what I've been following. That's been my intention in being more vocal.
Yeah. How has that felt for you in being more vocal?
It's felt like I'm in full alignment with who I really am. Yeah, I think I've always been an activist, just a little in hiding. And when I started coaching women of color, that activism started coming more to the forefront. So I've been moving to this place slowly. And when I've seen colleagues of mine, either organizations that no longer exist, that were doing similar work to what I do, or colleagues who've been able to not been able to speak loudly or really voice their opinion, it's given me permission then to fully align. So I feel more fully self-expressed than I ever have.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Tell me a little bit more about Roots and Wings. What is that organization? Because my only knowledge about it was there was a video, and I was surprised because there was a video of you and some other content creators in LA. It was a beautiful video. I remember watching it and getting so emotional because we don't always, especially me working in media, we don't always see people who look like us front and center. And it was one of the first times that I saw it, and it was receptive, and people were flocking to it, and it was shared, and it went viral. And that's been a little while ago, but then it got resurfaced. And then I saw you on CBS News in Los Angeles. I was like, what's Wendy doing? I love it.
The beauty of social media, right? Actually, so Roots and Wings started with Jay Gonzalez, who is the president of Roots and Wings. And we're an organization. We're not a formal organization. We're a group of content creators who got together and said, hey, we want to use our platforms to send a message back to the administration about the love we have for our community, the love we have for our parents. So most of us are children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves. And we wanted to voice a love letter to Los Angeles and a love letter to our immigrant background. That's really what we wanted to say. We wanted to humanize what the administration is doing and remind them that we're human beings who, yes, we are from these countries, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, but we're also American. That's why our first video was, de dos banderas, right? Having two flags in our hearts, that we come from both and that we fully feel integrated into both. Why are you making it like it's a fight between these two parts of us? And tugging at the heartstrings, I think, is what we wanted to do, is really tug at the heartstrings, not get so into the, realm of the politics, but more in the realm of the emotional heart of what we do in terms of the love we have for our families, the love we have for our culture, stories, exactly, which is what content creators do. So using our platforms and together combined, we have over 20 million followers. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, and I love that. The aspect of healing through storytelling is really the way I see it. Again, I remember seeing the initial video, and it helped heal me in a way, because I hear so much, it feels like you're neither from here nor there. But after I watched the video, I was like, no, we're from here and there, de aquí y de allá, not like ni de allá ni de aquí. It's both. And I loved that. How do you think that stories like this help with intergenerational healing, and what does that even mean? We hear that so much, like generational trauma and the pain that we carry. what does it mean? What does healing, this kind of healing, mean?
One, I think it means that you feel seen. And just the fact that you feel seen, right? Like what happened when you saw the video, just that alone is healing. It's healing to the nervous system. Like studies have shown the body calms down when you actually feel like somebody can relate to what you are feeling and experiencing. And you're witnessing, the actual witnessing of someone doing something that maybe your heart is telling you want to do, but you can't, or you haven't been able to, or you're still in step one, whatever step one is, right? So if you're witnessing somebody else be a voice for something that you want to say, that witnessing is healing in and of itself. Just that, just the watching of the video starts to heal you. It also tells you you're not alone in a world where a lot of people, and people in my own family, are telling me that, you shouldn't get involved in all of that and all the politics, and that's a little crazy, or you're going a little extreme. In a world where a lot of people are telling us that we should just go back to doing our work and, continuing to build our businesses or whatever. When you see somebody actually take action and say something and it resonates with you, now you're like, I'm not crazy. Okay, this is like what's happening is actually happening. And then you call out what is actually happening. You actually name it, right? The injustices that we're witnessing, the kidnappings that we're witnessing. The first place that the word kidnapping started to be used was in social media. It was influencers starting to say, hey, we're not going to call these, taken by ICE. We're going to say these are kidnapped by masked men because we don't even know for sure that they're ICE. That narrative started in TikTok and Instagram, and then eventually made its way into the lips of elected officials, of people who were getting interviewed behind the mic and all that. So the power of social media to heal, that's how we heal. We heal by witnessing each other, by actually being a voice for people who can't voice themselves for whatever reason.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about how you take care of yourself through this. When we started, I said, who are you in this moment? You said, I'm a mom. And I could feel that there was a little bit of maybe wrangling the kids right before this and getting things situated. How do you take care of yourself, Wendy? I think even with coaching with you, I remember you would teach us different ways to change our mindset or really focus on the power of our voice and what we say to ourselves. Are you doing that for yourself? How are you caring for yourself when, again, you're on the front lines of what's happening in terms of you're speaking to people in your community and you're sharing the stories and you yourself are connecting with journalists. Hey, can I share the story that you reported on? How are you taking care of yourself in all of this? Hey, familia, are you taking notes? I sure hope so. Okay, so a quick pause to ask a huge favor. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast and YouTube channel. It ensures you don't miss any episodes and gets this content in front of more people. So please just take a second, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate your support. All right, now let's jump back into the conversation.
Woo, let me take a deep breath in.
Yes, exactly.
As I remember, I'm supposed to take care of myself too. Yeah, number one for me has been community. And I think that's part of why I joined Roots and Wings is the way we've been able to support each other in Roots and Wings because we're a community of people coming together. So I don't feel alone. And that, it just fills my heart, right? Because I'm with other people who, we're all volunteers. Nobody is getting paid. Everyone's just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Whether you have 1 million followers or, 100 or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you want to step up and you want to say something, then you have a shared vision. And that shared vision also heals me and gives me energy. It energizes me. So community, I've been to more community events the last 6 months than I did, I think, all of 2024. More community events because they are energizing. They are like, it's almost like getting one of those vitamin shots if you've ever gotten one of those IVs, those like, vitamin IVs. Yeah, that's what being in community has felt for me. So how do I take care of myself? Number one is I try to be in community as often as possible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 2, meditation. I've gone back to meditating daily in the morning. It's one of the things that transformational work taught me. And I'm so grateful for having transformational coach and doing this type of coaching Because one of the main pillars of transformation is that we are bigger than our circumstances. And as horrible as what's happening, I'm witnessing some horrible things happen, they are still circumstances. They are not who I really am in the world. And this administration is not, we're so much more powerful than what this administration brings to the table. They are not the end all be all, right? So even though we find ourselves in a really bad circumstance right now, that's horrible, that people are literally dying from, yeah? There's something called source energy that's more powerful than all of that. And so remembering that and connecting to that, and meditation allows me to do that. There was I think 3 weeks where I meditated for at least 20 minutes every day, just to stay in my normal capacity of being able to manage myself, right? Yeah. And then lastly, I'll say another way I'm taking care of myself is disconnecting. So I've taken more days off, where I just don't.
A content creator and coach who disconnects? Tell me more.
Right? It is possible. It is possible. I'm not a unicorn. There are more of us. I'm learning a lot from the other content creators that they do disconnect. You can you can set things up ahead of time. And, I have kids. This goes back to my kids. And you're right. Right before I got on here, I had to yell at one of them to get off the couch and blah, blah. I was in mom mode. And that's life. Kids will ground you. They're just such a beautiful part of life where they don't care what you have to do, how many other things they have. And they've also given me inspiration, right? Because now my daughter, who's 14, is starting to understand. She's old enough to start to understand what is happening in the world. And so to have the possibility of raising a activist daughter, right, who may become a leader in the future and be doing work like that. You could just feel the inspiration that gives me, the joy that gives me to raise aware children who are going to become adults, who are going to make a contribution, make a difference in the world, and not just be, same old privileged people that are just worried about themselves, but actually are thinking about community. That's also how I take care of myself, is just being with my kids, being with my husband, focused on family, not answering every single DM, which I've learned to do. I don't answer every single message. I don't answer every single text message necessarily. Being okay with letting things go. Emails that wait sometimes a week. Sometimes I get things done right before something else. Allowing myself to be in that flow and not having to be so stressed out. Yeah, because this has really put things in perspective of what's most important. What is most important? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I can relate to what you said, doing meditation just to get to the baseline. Sometimes for me, I also meditate, but I always share with my students and folks who ask me, sometimes meditation doesn't look like sitting in a corner, completely silent in a dark room, and you're doing that thing. Sometimes for me, meditation is cooking. I think it was a couple weekends ago, I felt so dysregulated, and I went in the kitchen and started cooking some arroz mexicano, some Mexican rice, and just being in the moment of okay, we're cutting the onions, and you can smell the onions, and you can hear the rice frying on the pan, and you can hear the little burbujas as it's boiling, and just the smells. And it took me back to when I was a kid, and my mom would be cooking Mexican rice, and I felt so grounded in those moments. And I'm going to dance every night. When I'm not doing well, my husband's like, Leslie, I think you need to go to dance. And
I love that. Okay. Yes, to dance. I did take up a hip hop class, and I was doing hip hop for about 3 months. Yeah. And every Monday night I would go to this hip hop class, and I loved that. So I get it. I get the movement of the body that helps us regulate and helps us just feel normal, back to just feeling like a normal person.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I want to go back to a couple things. First of all, let's talk for a moment to folks out there who might be like you, who are either on the front lines or really in the work. I know some of the folks who listen to my podcast are people who are social workers, people who are teachers right now as we are going into the school year, and it's all under the cloud of this. Our kids even showing up to school. What is something that you can share with them that they can do in order to help stay grounded, but also not, pretend, like you said, everything's fine, everything's rainbows and sunshine?
Yeah. I think talking about what you're feeling is really important. Allowing yourself to vent, allowing yourself to cry, finding a safe space to talk about what's happening, but then actually voicing your concerns, voicing what you're witnessing. Like, we need to say out loud what we're actually seeing happen, because it's shocking in some cases that, a kid who showed up to go to kindergarten with his mom got taken and then he got taken right outside the school. So technically it didn't happen on school grounds, so the school wasn't involved. But like, somebody witnessed that. Okay, we need to say that out loud. We also need to document that. But just the saying of it, one, brings you to the reality of what is happening, right? It's like calling out the elephant in the room. Then you can actually do something about it. You can process through it. You can figure out what you're going to choose to do. You don't have to do a ton of things. Sometimes just saying it out loud to someone who can do something is enough, right? Witnessing what you're witnessing and then sharing the information that you're witnessing. Yeah. I think what I tell people most importantly is feel your feelings. Talk about what you're feeling. Don't allow yourself to go numb, because that's what this administration wants, is for us to go numb, where we're so used to, like, every day there's some explosion. So we don't even move now when we see an explosion. Every day there's some bill getting cut or some funding getting cut or some program being dismantled or somebody being killed or somebody being taken to jail or to these cages, that we're just like, oh, well, this is just the norm now. No, this is not the norm. Your body knows this is not normal. So don't allow yourself to go numb, and speak your truth. Say what you're feeling. That simple act of having a venting session with a friend that can hold space for you is a way for you to process through. Now, there's other ways for people to get involved, obviously. One of the things that we're really going to be pushing for with Roots and Wings is we're now into a full month of these ICE raids, right? So what's happening in Los Angeles is that there's a large population of undocumented people that are no longer leaving their houses, that are just not leaving their house. You mentioned, Leslie, about, I don't know what's going to happen when school starts in August. Yeah. Schools start here in mid-August, and teachers are already saying that, they're probably going to have 30% less kids showing up, right? And so that's going to affect funding for school. That's going to affect teachers. And it's just sad. If you know some of these students personally and you know that they're undocumented, they may not be here, the following year. So what we're starting to organize with Roots and Wings and what we're starting to spread around California is we need to get those families supplies, because they're not even going to the market. They're not even going to the store to get like toiletries or regular basic needs, and getting them the tools that they need, getting them food, getting them water, getting them, everything they need to maintain their household in a safe way that builds trust. That's super important. And that's actually one of the next projects we're moving into. So people can donate. They can donate if they look at Roots and Wings. We're going to have posts on our link tree and all that for how they can donate. You can donate directly money. You can actually volunteer to be one of the people who goes and drops off food. And we're talking about dropping off on like front porches or front doors of apartment buildings, not necessarily going inside. Yeah. Or even just helping to drive or helping to coordinate. That alone is going to be really helpful. And of course, there's other ways you can help also. You can still donate to immigrant rights groups like Carecen and Chirla out here in LA that are doing a lot of work. You can get involved in the rapid response team, which is the team that actually calls out when ICE is present and knows how to document what is happening with ICE and is helping keep track of people, like somebody that gets taken on a random corner. What's their name? What country of origin were they from? Who's their nearest family member? How do we let their family member know, right? Mm. So those are different ways that people can get involved in whatever capacity they have, whatever way they have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I know here in Texas where I'm at, we have Raíces Texas, Fiel Houston, quite a few organizations that are also helping with the situation. I also want to go back to when you said that there's a level of privilege that comes with being able to speak out. So talk for a moment to folks who maybe have not spoken out. There's also, there's a lot of dysregulation in our society right now. And I've seen some situations where people get attacked on social media because they have not spoken out. And, as a journalist, there's always two sides to the story, and we always want to hear maybe why. I think it was interesting that you suggested one of the reasons why folks aren't speaking out is because maybe they can't, or maybe they're of mixed status families. Who knows what situation. What would you say to folks? How can folks in that position maybe take care of themselves, and what are some words of advice that you have for them?
Yeah, if you're in a position where you can't speak up for whatever reason, you can't be one of the people on the front lines, right? But you want to support. You want to, make a difference in some way. Number one, take care of yourself, because if you fall apart, then, if you're under the covers, scared all the time, which is understandable also if you're undocumented. But number one, take care of yourself, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. We've actually had some people in Roots and Wings choose to self-deport, actually choose to leave the country because they wanted to do it on their own terms. That was what, when we say take care of yourself, that's what came up for them. They were like, if I really wanted to take care of myself, I would just leave because I know I can have a peaceful life in my country of origin. Wow. I'd rather have that than have somebody show up at my door or knock my door down, right? Which is what ICE is doing now, is knocking down doors, breaking car doors. So it's no more knocking on the door. Now it's become really violent. So whatever you need to do to take care of you is number one, because if you can't take care of you, then you're not gonna be able to take care of your family, right? Secondly, something that you can do if you're at risk of getting taken is set up your paperwork so that you have someone, for example, to be able to watch your kids if you get taken, right? There's actual parenting paperwork that has to do with like attorneys that you can set up, or who's going to have access to your bank accounts if you have a bank account, who's going to take care of like grabbing money or take over your job that you may be leaving, even if it's like somebody selling flowers, on a street vendor selling flowers on the corner. What's going to happen to all those flowers or your tools? Letting people around you know, this is what I want to have happen if I get taken. Here's the number you can call. Getting in touch with an immigration attorney ahead of time, or a number that leads to a group of maybe pro bono immigration attorneys. Having all of that information set up, that's actually a great way for you to take care of yourself also. And then if you want to help others, there are other ways for you to share your stories anonymously, right? There are blogs, there are podcasts, there are other ways for people to get their stories out. I know a group that are doing poetry, writing stories, writing poems to get their feelings out and to express their feelings. So I know other people that are doing fashion shows to express their anger and express their joy also through, their fashion and whatever they're choosing. And then there's music. So many people have been inspired by what's happened. Different ways of getting your feelings out there and actually taking care of yourself without necessarily needing to be front and center, and without necessarily needing to say something. You can also donate money anonymously. Mm-hmm. Yeah. $20. $20 will, pay for 3 days of food for an undocumented family that hasn't left their little house in like 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all great suggestions. Well, I always want to be mindful of folks' time. So I do have 4, technically 3, final questions for you as we wrap up our time. The first one is, what is one way that you're living soul-centered or sustainably right now?
Oh, I love this question, Leslie. Oh, this reminds me of our coaching because it's got the soul-centered part and then the sustainability part. How do you sustain that? Yeah. 2 important parts to life. How am I living soul-centered? I think anytime I'm connected to my kids, I'm soul-centered. And I'm more connected to my purpose. Like I feel more aligned with the voice of my ancestors than I ever have. So I'm definitely in soul purposed work for sure. How am I going to make that sustainable?
Yes. What's the cost of it all?
What's the cost of it all? Yeah. Learning to balance on both sides. Learning to take time for myself. Also learning how to navigate the connection of the business, right? Because I am a coach and I'm a coach for Latinas. Learning to navigate that part of the business with the politics, with the work that I'm doing in Roots and Wings, and figuring out how to dance between the two so that I'm not just doing activism work all day long. But coaching work that I still love. Yeah. That's a part of the sustainability that I'm working on. That's still kind of a work in progress. Finding ways to express myself through joy. So I've started writing. I've got a couple of creative projects that are coming. I think a lot of the work with Roots and Wings is creative. And then I'm taking breaks. I'm taking more breaks also, like legit days where I do nothing. I'm taking a break from my podcast. Yes, Mujer Build It, that a podcast that I have. I'm taking like a good 6 weeks off, which I've never done. So taking real breaks that are sustainable over time, that help me actually be able to, yes, do this work, hopefully. And I don't know how long we'll have to do this work. I'm hoping that things will start to shift and we won't be on this, defensive, at least here in LA, we won't feel like we're on the defense every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, as an aside, can you briefly explain what it means to dance with something? I know that we're familiar with that, but for folks who are listening who are like, what do they mean by dancing?
Yeah, you're right. It's not actual physical dancing, right? Although we do that too. But dancing with something means that you are shifting with it. And sometimes it's leading you and sometimes you're leading it. Hopefully you're leading it more often than it is leading you. Just the way you partner dance with somebody when you're dancing with them, who's leading who?
Yeah.
And that's actually how we get through things, how we get through life. We flow. It's in a flow. This all came to me when I first was looking for the answer to how do you cure anxiety. And I did a bunch of research on it and realized there is no cure for anxiety. And you know what the answer was? After talking to like 10 therapists and buying books and listening to audios and it came down to you dance with the anxiety. And that like opened my brain up to a whole new way of thinking about, I could dance with my anxiety. So I could also dance with my activism. I could dance and I could have two things dance together. So sometimes the coaching part of my business is, leading, and sometimes the activism work is leading. And then it feels like I don't have to control everything all the time. Yeah. It's more of a flow. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. I've used similar iterations. Like I hate work-life balance. No, sometimes it's work-life harmony. Like in that same, sometimes sometimes I'm pulling 16-hour days, but then others I'm, like you said, day off, not touching anything.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Second question. What one practice is connecting you to your ancestors or your inner Nina, little Wendy? Ancestors or Nina?
Okay. Connecting to my ancestors is definitely coming through the meditation work. Yes. And then when I'm around other grounded women. So meditating for me, sometimes I'll play certain indigenous music. My background is Mayan. I'm a quarter Mayan. So I connect with the language of Quiché. I connect with the hupiles and the worry dolls, all the like Guatemalan aspects of being Guatemalan that bring that joy into my life. So oftentimes I'll meditate around something that is from Guatemala that my parents brought that reconnects me to the land and the earth. But the other part of it is there is a intuition I feel that comes alive when I'm around a woman who is grounded. And by grounded, I mean connected to the earth. And it's not always women who show up like indigenous, right? Sometimes it could be a businesswoman who's in a full suit and stilettos. But the feeling that I get when I'm around them is like, this is a grounded person. And when I'm with them, something gets activated in me that feels more grounded. And then I can literally hear my ancestors speak to me, sometimes through the person that's in front of me, right? And they show up in lots of different ways. They're not always powerful, in quote unquote powerful in the way they show up. Sometimes it's the quietest person in the room who then comes up to me and talks to me at the end of whatever process I just did or workshop. And in connecting with them, I'm like, it's almost like this is like an ancestor who's coming up to me and asking a question. Yeah, I see you nodding, Leslie. Like I feel like you have had those moments too where you're...
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'm even at the grocery store and I see someone and it's, I mean, it might be weird for folks who haven't explored that area of their life, but I get so emotional and overcome with emotion because I feel like it's one of my ancestors that's that's just kind of bopping and saying, I'm here, like, keep going. Hummingbirds are actually really big for me too right now. Just connecting with hummingbirds. And I looked it up because I didn't know much about hummingbirds. And hummingbirds were a messenger in indigenous times. There was a big belief that when hummingbirds would show up, it was a message from your ancestors. And when I learned that, I was like, I mean, I got chills, I sobbed, everything. And they've been showing up for me a lot. So yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yes. That is a way that I connect with my ancestors. I guess it's just walking the earth and being awake enough to notice those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, last couple of questions. What is one thing we need less of, and then one thing we need more of?
One thing we need less of is less screen time in general. Which I know is challenging because, we all are doing like these podcasts and I'm an influencer, apparently, whatever that means. So I spend a lot of time on my phone, but less time, in screens and more time together. Definitely more time in community, sitting in circle together. We need to be with each other, talking about what we're experiencing, connecting with each other. The medicina is literally the community coming together. And just being together, even if it's just a fiesta at the corner. I mean, I've participated in so many marches just because I wanted to be in community. I wanted to be out with people who are like-minded and feel collectively what we are experiencing, because we are experiencing something as a collective. Yeah, I love that. The medicine, that was a beautiful way to put it. Oh, so wonderful. Wendy, how can people connect with you? How can people support your work, Roots and Wings? Where do we find you? Where do we find your podcast when the next episodes pop up? How do people get in touch with you? Yes, thank you so much. So the best way to get in touch with me, or the place I'm most active, is on Instagram. So at Wendy Amara on Instagram. You can also follow Roots and Wings at rootsandwings.org. on Instagram. My website is a great place to find out about my coaching, my programs. The podcast is also on my website. I have a group coaching program called Inspired Action, and then a mastermind that Leslie used to be in. To find out information about me and my actual coaching programs, go to wendyamara.com. And then the podcast is called Yes, Mujer, Build It, because we still get to build the life we want, not just the business we want or the career we want, but the life, right? Everything that we want. And that's available on Spotify. It's available on Apple Podcasts. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can listen to that.
Yeah. Oh, so amazing. Wendy, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for really making all these headlines and the work you're doing. Thanks for making it real, because I think that's what is missing a lot of times from the context is all of this stuff is happening, but how is it manifesting and how are people living through this? So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having this podcast. Thank you for using your platform to get voices out there in the community. And thank you for asking the really important questions about how do we dance during this time and actually take care of ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, until next time, thanks, Wendy. Thank you for listening to this entire episode. For that, my heart is filled with gratitude. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Spread the word to your friends and fam, whoever may be interested in this topic. This space is for you, familia. If you know someone who'd be a perfect guest, yes, including you, or you have a topic you'd like to see covered in future episodes, visit thenewsyogi.com/podcast. See you next week on The News Yogi.